Hey everybody! Welcome to episode 18 of YOLO with ToLo. Let me get my co-host Lonell on. Hope you guys are having a good week. We've been talking to a lot of people this week, and our conversations have been around stress and how to deal with stress. And we've gotten several questions also based on this topic. So as we do every week, we crowdsource your questions and wisdom. Okay, let's see, Lonell, see if you're on here. We based our theme of our show based around the questions that you guys ask. So let me see if we can get Lonell on here. Here you go, Lonell. Let me add you here. Okay, he's being added.
Hey, what's happening?
How are
I'm
you?
good. How about yourself?
I'm great. Okay, so you're in. Where in
Texas
the world
child,
is
it is
Lonell this
hot
week?
as Hades. Okay.
Wait,
It is,
San Antonio, you said? Was
yeah,
it earlier?
San Antonio, Texas. It's so hot down here, it's not even funny. No,
So is
it's
it
really not
humid?
funny.
Forget. Is it humid or is it dry heat? I forget. It's been a long time since I lived
It's
in
it's not
Texas.
bad. It's not, the humidity is not bad today, but it's still stifling. But I don't mind the heat, so
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
good. How are you
I
doing?
do. I'd rather do a dry heat than a non-dry heat, like a humid heat. But I am good. I'm a little tired, to be honest. I'm Uncle Twan camp this week. Last few weeks, watching my 13-year-old nephew and 9-year-old niece, and just going on adventures, theme parks, and hanging out and spending time with them, and trying to get some, my side hustle, other things going on. So, how are you doing?
I'm good. Life is wonderful. I just got back from New York City. I was there for Pride. We're going to talk about all that stuff, I hope. But life is good. Life is good, even in the
Okay,
heat.
awesome. Awesome. Wait, I definitely want to hear about Pride, but this week I want to let people know that this week's topic is all about dealing with stress. And you're lying if you, yeah, right? You are right. You're lying if you are watching and you're saying that you do not deal with any sort of stress, because I think stress could be a good thing too, right?
Right.
There's eustress and there's distress.
When
We're going to talk
channeled
about
correctly, it
all of
can
it
definitely be
today.
a good thing. But more often than not,
Yeah, right, exactly. And
people don't manage it that
people
way.
don't deal with it. Yeah. Yeah, and it's really all about how you deal with stress, right? Because, like you and I like to say, it's all here to teach us something. All the challenges we go through, all the stress. So, shall we roll
Let's
with it? Let's talk
roll
about
with it.
Solos, hot topics. What are people talking about this week? The Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy, who was, interestingly enough, he's a conservative, but he's provided a lot of key votes, right, to same-sex marriage, abortion, affirmative action, and he's gonna throw his hat into the ring of retirement.
He's like, I've had enough
He's
of this.
retiring.
It's interesting because
People are stressing.
people are
I
very
see it all
stressed
over
out.
social media.
I've been looking at, my, especially on my Facebook feed, as well as my Twitter feed, and there just seems to be like, we're screwed, and everybody,
Yeah.
people just like freaked out, and it's like, okay, listen,
Yes.
people, we've been through worse, have we? But I say that to say that we will get we will get through this. We will get through this. And it doesn't matter if you're left or right. I know people on the left are just truly freaked out. But my advice to anyone who's so devastated by this is like, listen, you still got to fight. Why don't you take a lesson out of their playbook? Because when the balance of
Yes.
power was shifted, they were barking all the
Yeah.
time, but they were behind the scenes strategizing. They weren't emotional about it.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
calculating. So I just want people just like, no, just don't give up. The country is still worth fighting for, whatever you believe
Yes.
in. That's just my
Yes.
little sense. But you've got to find ways to channel that stress, whether volunteer, get involved, run for office, whatever
Yes.
whatever you're going to do. But sitting
Yes.
there just
And
writing
remember,
on social media is not going to cut it.
yes, absolutely. And the pendulum swings left to right, goes everything that goes up must come down, right?
Right.
And I love what you said about just taking action, is that I have a friend who was very stressed out when Trump got elected. And you know what? I'm so proud of her, because whether you're red or blue or purple, that's a new thing. not new. Is it new to me? I just heard it recently in Oprah's podcast, and she was talking to Maria Shriver on Super Soul Sunday.
Right.
They said that they went triple. Hey, Kathy. So yeah, so which means that you're sort of like what, an independent. But I love that my friend who was super stressed out did something about it. And I always tell people, look, if you don't vote or you don't take action somehow, like my friend, she every week she volunteers and does phone banking, and she calls based upon different things that she believes in and the party that she believes in. And I think the vibration is higher now of the awareness. And one thing I don't want to get political, but one thing I do want to caution everybody to is the fact of just feeling numb and feeling like despondent, and you don't want to feel like you make a difference or you don't want to do anything, because you have more power than you think.
Right.
By taking some action, calling your representative, if you don't believe in something that something that has happened in the world, or some sort of law that's passed, or something that's happened, like, for example, another thing that's still causing stress to people is the kids that are being the kids that have come with the parents illegally to the border of Mexico.
Right.
How they're still separated from, many of them are still separated from their parents, and that's, people have been calling, people have been taking action. So things are being done about it because people are taking action. So when you're feeling despondent, the best thing you can do is do something.
Right. You can't allow yourself to feel defeated. You might feel overwhelmed because, yeah, if you're on the left, today was definitely a striking blow. But it's not like, okay, well, let's just throw in the towel and bend over and just let him do what he wants to do. Hell no. I'm like, this this is time to fight more than ever. So,
right.
And if you're on the right, don't get too cocky and make the same mistake that the people made on the left in the last election. So, if we really want to move forward, everybody would have to just come to the middle. Everybody's not going to get 100% of what they want, but until we are, as long as we are fighting, I don't know. That's going to be the more daunting challenge to actually get to the middle.
Yeah. So how are you dealing with all of this? Let's start talking about like the world stress, right? All this, you're on social media a lot. You set your notifications. We're going to talk about how to detox in our fourth segment and digital detox. But how do you, like, when you're, like, I believe that the energy that you're around, whether you're listening to the radio or you're watching TV or you're on social media, there's some sort of energy transfer.
Oh, definitely.
So how do you dealing with that stress? I feel it. I always feel on edge after I get off social media when I'm on it a while.
Well, for me, I just have to realize, listen, social media is just that. It is like this digital platform, and everybody's coming to it with whatever energy problems, issues, that exist. But I just have to understand, for me, it's about looking in my immediate real world. So, like, somebody may tweet something crazy, and I might have an emotional reaction to it. But it's like, no, this is not time to be emotional. Let me step away from this. Let me take a breath. If I feel the same way, like cussing you out in 5 minutes, let me take another 5 minutes until I don't feel like cussing you out. And am I really hearing what you're saying? And is it even worthy of a response? Because sometimes we just get so invested in the fight that we're not even really, trying to seek a solution. We're just trying to win the argument. And I'm just like, no, I can't. I have to be mindful of that energy. Again, like we spoke about last week, being mindful of who has control of your energy in that moment. So for me, it's just constantly reassessing and just constant reassessment of where I am in that particular moment, and just not giving my power over to somebody else. But I said to look at your real world, because like in my immediate world, like I was just having a conversation at a park on race, actually, with a Caucasian friend and another African American friend this past weekend in New York. And we were talking about some of the like racially tense stuff that comes across social media and in the news feed all day. And I was like, well, I said, let's just look around. I said, let's just look around where we are right now. We're sitting in the middle of the Upper East Side of Manhattan. We were in a playground, like a park. And there were Black children, there were Asian children, there were Hispanic children. They were all playing around with their families. They were all interacting. And I said, okay, I don't see anybody in my immediate world that is screaming about this nonsense. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't exist, but that lets me know that every single person does not ascribe to these extremes that I see in the media or on social media. So for me, it's just like taking stock of my real world in that moment.
Yes. Amen. That is so true, because I can attest to this, because I've been in the news, worked in news for a decade or more. behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. And I can tell you that there was so much more goodness out there than what you see. Because obviously, it's true that term, if it bleeds, it leads, right? The newscast. I just see so many people. Like, I can tell you this week, like, I've seen people like give food to the homeless on the streets. I've seen people help each other across the street. When somebody falls, somebody ran to help them. And there are just so many more people out there um, that are good, no matter if you're red
Right.
or blue or purple, whatever, you know, whatever side or party lines you're on. People
And
are
I
good.
really believe at the end of the day, we kind of want the same things. We just don't agree on how we need to get to them. You know what I'm saying? No, I really
Yeah.
don't believe that people in this country necessarily want, people to go bankrupt because they get sick, or pretend
Yeah.
like we don't have a problem with
Yeah.
illegal immigration at our southern border. But how do we resolve these things? And we haven't really been constructive about that in our dialogue and in our method. But we want the same thing, but we don't necessarily agree on how to get there. And that's where the compromise has to come in. So hopefully we can get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like one thing that you said that really resonated with me a moment ago is that you are in control of your power.
Always, in
Like,
every
let's
moment.
sit with that for a moment. Yes, right? And so you have control of whether you want to give it up or give it away to people. Like when people engage through social media, for example, right? There's so many people that hide behind these different kind of monikers or handles or whatnot. So let's talk about that here in segment 2. Dump the hump. This week, let's talk a little bit about how you protect your energy and control your happiness around social media, right? Because we were talking about this in previous conversations together with you and I and with other people about how social media, it's a weird thing, right? It's like sort of newish, puts a weird time clock and a falseness on comparing and goals and expectations with people. Um, you're on social media a lot. You're a social media influencer. Like, I would love to hear from you about how you deal with all this ratchety ratch that's happening. Ratchety ratch. Is that even a word? I don't know.
I don't. For me, it's like, okay. So I think one of the biggest things, like you and I talked about offline before, are notifications. And like, for instance,
Well,
I used to
yes.
follow
Are
some.
you?
I'm sorry.
What do you put? Wait. First and foremost, let me ask you. Why are your notifications on and on which platform? It seems like you're always on social every time I ping you or whatever. So.
Yeah. So my notifications are on. I have like Instagram notifications, and then on Twitter, I have notifications of two accounts that I follow when people tweet. Two accounts that I follow. I used to be three. The president used to be one of them, but then I still follow him, I think. But I didn't get. I stopped getting the alerts because they was just bait for me to troll. And I was like, okay, this is
Yeah.
not this. And I realized it's like, okay, you're like some addict. You're just like, because he's gonna do something just outlandish that you, or whether you agree with it or not, and just the feedback. Because for a moment I found myself thriving on the fact that um, especially if he did something that I agreed with that particular day, which is rare, but sometimes it happens. And it's like, and then like the vitriol and the energy that would come back and forth
Oh
on my
God.
timeline, and then
Yeah.
it was like I was feeding on that, and I was like, this is not productive, Lonell.
Yeah.
This might look good
Yes.
for your Twitter stats, but this is not productive. So for me, it's really about being mindful of the notifications and which notifications I allow. So now I have filters on,
Mm.
like with the Twitter platform, you can it can filter out a lot of tweets, so most of them I don't see unless I follow you. Based on what the language, I don't know how the algorithm works, but there are a lot of tweets I no longer see when people
Mm.
respond. So I just try to be mindful because it's so easy to just get caught up in that because you're engaging, but no, what you're really doing is just exchanging that negative energy back and forth. And I'm guilty. I
Yeah.
was guilty of it. I had to stop. So
Yeah.
that's one thing, definitely, to just be mindful of notifications. And another thing I think for me is, okay, just because someone says something does not mean that I have to own their feelings or their
Yes.
beliefs.
It's their issue. I
It's their
say that
issue.
all the time.
And we can agree to
Even in real
disagree,
life,
and
when
that's okay, and
people,
we don't have to have a
yes,
fight.
absolutely. Yep. Even when in real life, when people say stuff about you, look, it's not about you. That's a big life lesson that I learned. It's really all about them. Talking about notifications, I have 0 notifications, not even in my emails, because it causes me an anxiety and a stress. So to be really honest, like when I'm on social media, and sometimes in the morning I wake up, and if I don't have meetings or a call or have to be somewhere, or like I wake up super early and I have to be at my morning workout class, I will troll. I will just be on social media, and then I feel like this anxiety or this like stress, and I don't like that. So I try my best to just limit it and be mindful of how I'm feeling. Once I feel like, ugh, I feel like icky, I just like disengage and then like go on with my day or do something else. Like what are some practical ways you deal with it? Hey, Jacqueline, I see your
I
message.
see
Hi.
Jackie, I see
Hey,
Tao, and I
Tracy.
see Sam out there, and John. Hey, y'all.
Hey.
Yeah,
We
it's
want to know
difficult.
what you guys are doing too to deal with the stress. So please message us here live. But okay, so Lanelle, so what are some practical ways to deal with all the social media stress that we're dealing
Yeah, or
with
just
and the
stress in general.
madness, or
One
just the
thing
stress in general?
you have to realize, you just have to acknowledge that you are stressed, because sometimes you're busy
Yeah,
trying to just
hide
mask it
it
or numb it,
and mask
or
it.
just go on
Yeah,
and get through it because you want to.
and numbing through drugs, numbing through working out too much, numbing through anything.
Men, women, all that stuff.
Yeah,
Not that I speak from experience, but
that's another show.
that'll be in the book. No, but no, really, you have to be once you're mindful of your space, and you're in the moment, presently, fully present in this moment, then you won't have that issue. You can better manage it, I should say. I won't say you won't have the issue, but you can better manage it, because now you realize, wait, who is in control of my energy in this particular moment? And for me,
Mhm.
it's just that constant. I'm asking that question all day, probably more than any other question that I ask myself. It's like, who is in
Yeah,
control of your energy right now, right here and right now? And
yeah,
I really
yeah.
apply that when I'm on social media. I have to. I mean, and then once I know who's in control of it, then I can dictate. Once I'm aware that I'm in control of it, I can dictate
Mm.
what I allow into my space and what I don't. And it doesn't mean that I'm less compassionate or less interested, but I am invested in me. And I think if
Yeah.
more of us do
Mm.
that for ourselves, we'll have a better interaction and a better experience, not just on social media, but in life.
Yeah. There's a book called The Four Agreements. It's one of my favorites. And one of the agreements is don't take anything personally. And that is hard. But once you realize that, like, this like weight is lifted off your shoulders and things roll off your back. If somebody cuts you off, if somebody cusses at you, you're like, whatever, you don't know me. Or even if you know me, I don't care. And what you say doesn't really matter because you don't matter to me, right?
Right.
Last week we talked in Digital Detox about this whole idea and notion about building a spiritual firewall up digitally and through social media when people
Right.
or trolls talk about you. But you know what? I do that in person. I realized that one thing I learned after last week's show is I'm like, you know what? Like, let me be more mindful of applying that to my everyday life now, right? Building this sort of firewall up where, you know, I've been, on the streets and people yelling stuff to me, crazy stuff, and I'm just like, what is that? What Aaliyah song? Some of y'all may be too young for this, but dust yourself off and try.
Try again.
I
And
don't
I
want to start
always say,
singing
like,
that.
especially because I worked in Hollywood years ago, and there was just a lot of insincere sincerity. And my thing, the
Oh,
statement that
that's a
I
good one.
have is not personal. It's Hollywood. And I say that to mean, like,
Yeah.
well,
Oh,
listen, people are going to do
yeah.
what they need to do. You just cannot take that crap personally. But if
Oh,
you,
I like that. I
get what you
like
can
that.
get from this exchange, but you need to understand and be
Oh,
truthful, whether it's just a business transaction or if it's an actual
yeah.
friendship or whatever it is, you need to be honest with it. So, yeah, it's
Yeah.
not personal. It's Hollywood, child.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And once you get that, isn't life so much easier once you get that?
It's much, much, much better. It's practice, though. It
Right.
still is practice. It's not like you just get it and then you sail it on out and you ride it. No, it's a
Yeah.
constant
Yeah.
struggle.
Question.
Yeah.
Another question for you. Do you think that social media is making people more rude, or has it just always been there? And what do you think?
Social media, like any other platform, it just magnifies what's already there. If you're
Huh.
hurting and
Interesting.
you're a wicked, evil
Okay.
person, or you're a loving person,
Okay.
whatever, so
Fair
social media
enough.
just magnifies it. I don't think it's
I
making
say that
anyone be
with
anything
money
that they
too.
aren't.
Yeah, I say that with money too. That's a good point. Money, if you're a good person, I feel like, and you come into a lot of money, it just magnifies. And if you're a bad person, you just become worse, or just magnifies and you become a bigger jerk. So I agree with that too. Denise says, Wow, dated 2001. Aaliyah, dust yourself off and try again. You can just dust it off and try
And try it.
again.
Yeah, that was the first song to go #1 on airplay only. For some reason, I don't know why that statistic sticks with me, but
You know what? You know what's weird, funny? Okay, fun fact. I'm gonna start throwing little fun facts in too. Feel free to join us, people. Yeah. So when I was in college, I was interviewing people for to be MTV VJs. Remember where there were people hosting these shows on MTV? And Aaliyah was one of the performers. And I just remember being in awe. Like I was like, wow, she's so beautiful, she's so talented. And then like shortly thereafter, the plane crash had happened and she had passed away. And it just makes me realize this whole conversation about stress is part of it an illusion, or is it part of our ego that makes it up, right? So so let's chew on that for a moment as we move on to our segment 3. I love this little thought bubble. Segment 3 is
my
Talk to
favorite.
ToLo. This is where we answer your questions live and the questions you sent us in. We've got some really good questions from people. First one is from Kim in San Francisco. I just started a new job and already feel overwhelmed. It might be because I'm learning new things plus trying to execute tasks. How should I tell my boss that I'm overwhelmed and not to scare him into thinking that I can't do my job? That's a really good question.
Wow, that's a really good one.
Well,
And can I just throw out a disclaimer that any advice that I have, you can use at your own. I'm not condoning if you if you get fired.
always here.
Because
Always
you're out
here,
here
right?
trying to live your best life, and it leads you to you not having this particular job. Don't come back and blame Lonell. No, that's a great question. That is a great question. I don't know. She's got to find a way to communicate that, because if she doesn't, I don't know if it's to be if it's to be direct with your boss, or to maybe frame it around a suggestion of maybe how we can further better this process, make it seem like it's a team thing, like you're bringing a constructive suggestion to the table. I'm not sure, but I do know that if you're feeling like that and you've just started the job, sweetie, this is a recipe for disaster. Because you're not, if something doesn't change, something's going to change. So you have to,
Interesting.
yeah, you got to find a way to deal with that. I don't know. What do you think?
You know what? Coming from a compassionate point of view and being a good listener, I think is helpful. So I know a lot of people have issues with, look, let's face it. I think a lot of us, especially with social media, we're talking about social media right now as well, and during this talk is, I feel like social media has caused us to communicate less. Therefore, we're not exercising that communication muscle. So you may not be equipped enough to kind of spar with your boss. So if you are not, I always say, do your research, ask friends who have, you and I do this all the time with every part of our lives in our private conversations offline. It's like, if you don't know much about like financing a house or a car, like, wouldn't you go and ask somebody to help you that has had experience with that? Same thing with this. I would go to people who have had many jobs, and I always coach a lot of students. And fun fact is, back in the day, I would interview people and be sort of like for the Fortune 500 companies and be the liaison between the people that were hiring, the people that were trying to look for jobs. And I always say, you know what? Knowledge is power. So ask people, how would you deal with this situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in this specific situation, it really depends. Like you said, you have to be mindful of whether or not the job is in what you're way over your head and you're just feeling so stressed that you just don't like it or you don't want to do it. Or if it's a challenge, you want to get through it. But you have to also, I think, be assertive, because if they're throwing 50 million things your way, like I know many single friends who, we need to have a dating show because I have a lot of single friends, y'all. But but single friends who are at their jobs and they are super stressed because they're single, and people think, oh, you don't have family, you don't have you don't have kids, you don't have a partner, so we're going to give you more work, and they're working more. And I think that you really need to teach people how to treat you in any sort of relationship, personal, professional, and spiritual relationship. But you also have to do it in a way that's not complaining and whiny, right? And not fully loaded with ego. And so if you're not sure how, ask people who are experienced in personal, professional, or spiritual realm. And I think that is huge, because you know what? Chances are, if you're dealing with some sort of stress, you're not alone. There is hope. There's ways to deal with it. And I love that. Love
And
that
it's
question.
okay to ask for help.
Yes. Amen. And we've had conversations and shows based around the whole idea of change, and we talked about suicide, and all this craziness. But you know what? We're all in this together. And this is all kind of the great, crazy journey of this yellow brick road that we're experiencing, the yellow brick road of life, right? An anonymous question, and this one really resonates with me, and I think it'll resonate with a lot of, and not the term colored people is outdated, but a lot of like minorities, I think, is anonymous
People
from
of
Oregon.
color.
POC, people of
yeah,
color.
color people is definitely outdated. That might get a fist in my jaw. So you might want to...
Okay, so anonymous from Oregon asked, every time I go home to see my parents, they ask, when am I going to get married? Or let me add to that. People are like, oh, when are you going to have kids if you're with someone, okay? I know they mean well, but their old traditional values of getting married is causing me stress and a lot of reflection of why I'm not married yet. How should I talk to my parents about this without causing a strain in our relationship?
Well, I don't know.
Good one, isn't it? That's a good one.
Really good. I mean, that is really, really good. But let me full disclaimer: marriage is not my ministry, so I'm not.
And by anybody, for everybody.
But I don't. You've got to put yourself first, because if you're just, and you, I don't know how you have that discussion, but you've got to lay some ground rules. Like, I'll get married when I'm getting married. Yeah. I'm feeling pressure to do this. Why? And there may be pressure to do it, but those are mom and dads or whoever. Those are their values, and what they can do in raising you is teach you, to share their values. How you apply those values to your own life is still up to you. So
that's the hardest, though.
I'm not saying it's easy.
Real quick. I know, but let me tell you, like, I know there's a lot of people pleasers out there. And I know there's a lot of, this comes from, this question comes from somebody that I know is Asian. She just didn't want to say who she was. But I know that that you want to be the dutiful, filial, Asian child, or, we all want to make our parents proud, right? And what their idea of the American dream is not my idea of my American dream or personal dream.
Right.
And so it's not that easy. So how do you, my thing is, you do you, boo. We talk about that a lot. We need to get a t-shirt with that. You do you, boo. How do you without feeling that stress, I think, is what she's asking. Listen, feeling like, wait, maybe they are right? Right. Maybe I should what's wrong with me?
But understand that when you choose to do you and make yourself a priority, it's going to cause stress. And it's going to offend some people, especially people who have had dominion or control, per se, over you up to this particular point in your life. So that's just going to be a casualty of this process. But in the you have to look at the long game. What is your ultimate end game? And putting yourself first is going to reward. It's going to be much more rewarding.
Again, when you live and be your truth, whatever it is, whether it's in your job or your personal life or whatever, and you live that truth and you stick to that, the people that really matter to you will come around.
Right.
That's basically it.
Or they won't, but you got to be willing to be okay with that. Either you're okay with the fact that they may or they may not come around, or you're just going to be content with being in a miserable situation, putting up on airs in front like you're happy to please them.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go on to this last question, one more question here real quick, because I think this is a really important one that will touch everybody and resonate with everyone. Stephanie from San Francisco asks, stress feels like it's been ruling my life this week. I know theoretically that mindfulness is key and that letting your emotions flow through you and then letting go are great ways to handle it. But how do you handle, let me look over here. How do you handle the stress on a daily, daily, and find that balance?
Yeah.
And let me tell you.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
All right. And let me tell you, Stephanie, like all of us deal with it, and there are different ways in which we deal with it. So one way that I deal with it and one way that Lonell or you deal with it may be different, right? But for me, sometimes I just feel like being alone. Like what works for me is I write. Like when I stress, I write to write my sanity. So like I write to write my sanity, right? And then after that, I talk to people. That has always been my go-to. That's what feels good to me. You have to figure out what works for you. Is it journaling? For me it is, or writing something on my computer, or then I talk to people about it. For some people, it might be going on a walk. Well, no, what about you?
Yeah, because sometimes people don't have the time, or they feel they don't have the time to sit down and journal. Because
Oh,
I've got 430,000 things I need to do in 2 seconds to do them.
yeah.
For me, again, it's asking that question: who's in control of my energy now? What these are stressors, and maybe there's 10 things that I need to do right now. But listen, if I focus on all 10 of them at once, I'm going to go crazy, and I'm not going to get any of them done. So listen, what I need to
Amen.
prioritize what I'm going to allow to stress me out. And for me, when I prioritize things, those stressors, it actually motivates me a little more, and I don't feel so much like the
Huh.
negative stress because I feel like
Okay.
there's some order to the chaos. Even though it may not
Hmm.
be, or I still may not get all 10 of the things done, but at least I feel like I'm moving in that direction as opposed to just being overwhelmed. So you've got to find what works, I believe, for you. But you've got to be active in the process because my answer is
Hmm.
not going to work necessarily for you. Your answer is not going to work for
Yeah.
everybody, and their answers may not work for us. But you need to
Yeah.
find out what works for you. You've got to find some way to have an outlet for
Yes. And I love earlier you said that you journal and I say I write. It's a really good way to go back in time and see what you wrote. And, you know, a lot of things that we worried about, like we shouldn't have worried about. So I always think that too. I'm like, should I be worried about this in a year? Or can I control it at all right now? If I can't control it, then I really need to figure out a way at the moment to be in the moment
right.
and not let it rule this right now because right now things are okay.
Right. And that's
Right.
huge.
Or
Can I control it? Does my stressing out over this particular situation, will it affect the outcome? Will it change the outcome? If it's not going to change the outcome, child, bye.
Yeah. And again, attitude of gratitude. Be grateful for what you have now. Be grateful right now because it is, you know, it's not what you had many years ago, probably. I know that for sure with me, right?
Definitely.
Let's jump into our digital detox real quick. Segment 4. And I think have we given up on digital detox? I was gonna. I wanted to challenge you to get off of your notifications.
Yeah. Okay.
Turn them off. Turn them off.
I'm
For
not turning off
24
Oprah's
hours.
notifications. I might turn off the rest, but I'm okay. Okay. I'll try.
Try. I don't know what I want to do, but I don't. Maybe I should leave mine in the room for 20 less. I don't know because I also need it for work, and so do you, right? We need our phones for. And we tried that mute app where it tells you and shames you about like how long you've been on the phone, how many pickups you have.
One of us is still trying it, so I still get my reminders every day. So I'm very well aware because I didn't delete the app because it pissed me off. But I'm still working through it.
Shame. Oh, look. Denise says, control now. Try for 1 hour. Would that stress you out?
No, I could go an hour with it because you know the app that you deleted actually rewards you and reminds you when you've had these record stretches of not picking up your phone.
Oh,
so I try to get one of those every day.
Shame. Wait, didn't you say that you were with Ariana Huffington and Oprah and Ariana like threw shade on you?
Yeah, she said I could turn those notifications off as well. I'm like, girl, that's blasphemous. No. But yes.
D says, what about 5 hours? Just try it, dude. Dude, I'm crying. Just try it.
You know when this usually happens for me, when I can detox like that for a few hours, if I'm on an international flight that does not have Wi-Fi.
You're forced to do it.
Yeah. And the amazing thing is when I get through it, I'm like, oh, I made it.
Yeah. Exactly. Addict. Okay, so if you try for 5 hours, I'm gonna.
Wait. What happened to 1 hour? When now it's 5?
D, our producer has a way of like, you know, just kind of massaging stuff in there, and you're like, okay, I'll do it. But I'm gonna reactivate or add the stupid mute app again, and try it. Challenge. Hey, Kathy, we're talking about dealing with stress, so type in how you deal with stress. But yeah, I will challenge you to be off of it for 5 hours, and we'll talk about it next week. And I will get back on the app and the mute app and report back to you how I've been doing during the week. And we need your guys's, we need your guys's feedback, your wisdom, how
I
you
need
detox
help. What do you guys do?
Right? Or tablets, screens. You know, it's just, I know it's ruling my life, not ruining it because I can still function.
Well,
Kathy
like
says you
Kathy
grew up
just
with
said
that.
here, she said, you grew up without a cell phone and life was more simple then. Yes, it was. But this is now. But she's right. But you're absolutely right, Kathy. It's like life was much simpler.
Oh, Shay, hold up. Shay, D says, Tuan, you should try 5 hours, 1 minute, and not while you're sleeping.
Ooh, she must have been reading my mind because I was like, well, does sleeping count? Right. That's so right.
Okay, well, we'll try again next week. We'll try again next week, y'all. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
If you guys like what you see, please like the page, share, ask us questions because that helps kind of shape next week's theme. And tell us what you do to de-stress. I'm going to try to de-stress now by going get a bite to eat, people I love, and enjoying the rest of the night. Love you guys.
Take care, guys.
Bye now. See you later. Bye.